Look down at your hands for just a second. Really look at them, the way you might look at a stranger's hands rather than your own, just to see them freshly. Now think back to the last time you painted your nails, maybe for a special occasion, maybe just for yourself on an ordinary Tuesday, and something about the color just felt slightly off. Not wrong exactly, nothing you could point to specifically, just a little aging, a little tired, even though the manicure itself was perfectly neat, perfectly applied, not a single smudge or chip in sight. You probably blamed your hands themselves for that feeling. Maybe you thought quietly to yourself, my skin has simply changed with age. There's nothing to be done about how my hands look now, this is just what happens. Here's what nobody tells you at the nail salon, and honestly what most nail technicians themselves have never been specifically trained to explain, because their training tends to focus on application technique rather than color theory for mature skin specifically. Your hands didn't fail you in any way. The color did. Certain nail shades interact with mature skin in a very specific way that quietly emphasizes exactly the things you're hoping to soften. Veins becoming slightly more visible over time, small changes in undertone, subtle shifts in contrast between the nail and the surrounding skin. Meanwhile, other shades, ones you've probably walked right past 100 times on the display wall without a second glance, do the complete opposite. They brighten. They soften. They make the entire hand red as instantly more youthful and vibrant. And this has absolutely nothing to do with your skin, your veins, your age spots, or anything else about your hands specifically. It has everything to do with the color itself and how it interacts with skin that has simply lived a full, wonderful life. Today, over the next half hour, I'm going to walk you through 7 of these colors in real depth, the exact shades that flatter mature hands specifically, along with the actual reasoning behind why each one works, not just a quick list to glance at and forget. By the end of this video, you're going to look at your own nail polish collection completely differently, probably reaching for bottles you've owned for years but never quite understood how to use to their full advantage. And color number 4, when we get there, is the one manicurists quietly recommend to their favorite, most trusted clients, and almost never mention to anyone who doesn't specifically ask for something a little different. Welcome back to Elegant Beyond 60, the channel built on one simple, unwavering belief, that looking beautiful after 60 was never about spending more money. It was always about knowing more information, the kind that nobody bothers explaining clearly until you go looking for it yourself. Often after years of simply accepting things as they are without ever questioning whether a small adjustment might change everything. If you're new here, hello, truly, I'm so glad you found your way to us today, especially with this particular topic, because this is exactly the kind of small, practical, easily overlooked detail this entire channel exists to share with you. And if you're one of our wonderful regulars settling in comfortably right now, welcome back. You already know we keep things simple, honest, and genuinely useful here. No unnecessary complexity, no expensive recommendations, just real information explained clearly. Today we're spending real unhurried time on nail color specifically, and the 7 shades that make mature hands look instantly younger, softer, and more polished. This particular topic is so often completely overlooked, because we tend to pour so much of our attention into skincare routines and hair care, leaving nail color as something of an afterthought, when really it's one of the simplest, cheapest, most immediately visible changes available to any of us. A single bottle of the right color can genuinely transform how your hands read to the world. And yet almost nobody talks about the actual science and reasoning behind why certain shades work so beautifully while others quietly work against us. Before we settle in and get started properly, if you're already curious which of these 7 colors might be sitting somewhere in your own collection right now, do me a quick favor and tap that subscribe button before you get absorbed in everything coming up and forget entirely. It costs you nothing at all, and it genuinely helps this small channel keep reaching more women exactly like you every single week. While your hand is already there, tap the like button too, because it tells me precisely what topics matter most to you, and helps this exact video reach other women who need to hear this information just as much as you do. Alright, get comfortable because we have real meaningful ground to cover together today, and color number 1 is probably not the shade you'd expect to hear about first. Before we dive into the specific colors themselves, I want you to understand something clearly, because it genuinely changes how you'll think about nail polish for the rest of your life, not just for this one video. As skin naturally matures over the decades, it changes in a few small, completely normal ways. There's often a bit more visible veining beneath the surface, since skin naturally thins slightly with age. There's sometimes a subtle shift in overall undertone, either warmer or cooler than it once was. and there's frequently less overall contrast between the nail bed itself and the surrounding skin, since both tend to soften and blend together more than they did decades earlier. Nail color interacts directly with every single one of these natural changes, either working with them beautifully to create a fresh, youthful look, or quietly working against them in ways most of us have simply never had explained to us. Once you genuinely understand which shades do which, choosing a flattering color stops being a frustrating guessing game at the pharmacy counter and becomes something you can predict accurately every single time you shop. Color number 1. Soft Rose Nude. Let's begin with what might genuinely be the single most versatile, reliable shade on this entire list, the one I'd recommend to any woman unsure where to start. A soft rose nude, and I want to be specific here because this detail matters enormously, not a stark beige with no warmth to it, and not a cool gray tone nude either, but specifically one with a gentle pink undertone woven subtly through the base color, does something remarkable for mature hands specifically. It mimics the natural, healthy flush already present in a healthy nail bed, which means it creates no harsh contrast whatsoever against the surrounding skin. And harsh contrast is very often exactly what makes hands read as older to the observing eye, because stark contrast draws sharp, immediate attention to every vein, every small spot, every subtle texture change, rather than allowing the whole hand to read as one soft, cohesive, harmonious whole. This particular shade works precisely because it essentially melts into the hand in the most flattering way imaginable, brightening everything gently and evenly without ever shouting for attention or creating any jarring visual break between nail and skin. If you only take one single color away from this entire video and try nothing else we discussed today, this is genuinely the safest, most universally flattering starting point for virtually any skin tone or undertone you might have. Color number 2. Warm Coral. Here's a color so many women over 60 avoid entirely, often without ever really examining why, simply assuming it must be too bold, too bright, or somehow too youthful for them specifically, when in reality, the exact opposite tends to be true once the shade is chosen correctly with the right undertone in mind. A warm coral, and again the word warm here is doing enormous work, one with genuine orange and pink undertones woven through it rather than a cooler, more blue-based coral, does something wonderful specifically for hands showing a bit more visible veining or slight discoloration over the years. Warm tones like a properly chosen coral actively counteract the cooler, sometimes slightly blue or purple tint that can gradually develop in mature skin as circulation patterns shift subtly with age. Rather than sitting alongside that cool undertone and emphasizing it through contrast, a warm coral essentially neutralizes it, balancing the whole hand back toward warmth and vibrancy, rather than allowing any cool undertone to dominate the overall impression. The key word here, and I really want this to stick with you, is warm. A coral that leans even slightly toward blue or fuchsia in its undertone will have essentially the opposite effect we're looking for, actually emphasizing coolness rather than counteracting it. So when you're shopping for this particular shade, take the extra 30 seconds to hold the bottle directly against the actual skin of your hand in natural daylight, ideally near a window rather than under the yellow or blue-tinted artificial lighting common in most drugstores and salons, and look specifically for that genuine orange-leaning warmth before committing to purchasing the shade. Color number 3. Soft Lavender Gray. This particular color genuinely surprises almost everyone the first time they hear about it, because on paper, a soft lavender gray sounds like it should read as cool, muted, perhaps even a bit aging or washed out. In actual practice, when the lavender tone is kept genuinely light and soft rather than deep, dusty, or heavily saturated, it does something quite clever specifically with mature skin that has warmer undertones running through it. It creates gentle, genuinely flattering contrast against skin with warm undertones, essentially brightening the entire hand by offering the eye something soft and distinctly cool to balance visually against the natural warmth already present in the skin, rather than either blending in completely or clashing harshly against it. This particular shade works especially well for women who have noticed their hands looking a touch sallow, dull, or lacking in vibrancy lately, since the cool lavender base counteracts that specific dullness directly and immediately, almost like a corrective color choice rather than simply a decorative one. It's genuinely a color you have to try once with your own eyes to fully believe, because it photographs and reads in person far younger, fresher, and more sophisticated than it might sound simply described in words like this. Color number 4. Muted Berry. And here it is, the color I promised you all the way back at the very beginning of this video, the one experienced manicurists quietly, almost secretively recommend to their favorite, most trusted, most style-conscious clients, and rarely bring up unprompted unless someone specifically asks for something a little different from the usual safe choices. A muted berry, think specifically of a soft raspberry tone or a dusty plum, rather than a deep, dark, heavily saturated wine color, sits in this genuinely perfect middle ground between being bold enough to look intentional, stylish, and considered, while remaining soft enough to never read as harsh, severe, or aging against mature skin. The reason this particular shade is so quietly powerful comes down almost entirely to saturation level, which is worth understanding properly. Full, deeply saturated berry tones can sometimes create too much stark contrast against paler or naturally thinner skin, drawing attention in a way that isn't always genuinely flattering, occasionally emphasizing exactly the areas we'd rather soften. But a properly muted version of that same berry color family, slightly softened in saturation, slightly grayed down from the fully saturated version, keeps absolutely all of the sophistication, richness, and depth of the original color, while losing the potential harshness entirely. It reads as polished and put together without ever feeling severe or overly dramatic, and it's genuinely become one of the most consistently complimented shades among women who try it for the very first time, often becoming a permanent staple in their collection almost immediately. Alright, let's pause together for just a moment here because we're roughly at the halfway point of today's video, and I genuinely want to check in with you properly before we continue. If muted berry just made you think of a bottle sitting somewhere in your own nail polish collection right now, comment below and let me know honestly if you already own something close to this particular shade, or if it's a completely new discovery for you today. I read every single comment on this channel personally, and it truly genuinely helps me decide what topics to cover in future videos. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now is a wonderful moment to do exactly that, especially since we still have 3 more colors coming up together, including one that works particularly beautifully in the middle of winter, when everything about our hands and our overall look can feel just a touch dull and less vibrant than usual. And if this video has been genuinely useful to you so far, a quick like helps tremendously, since it tells the platform to actively show this information to other women who need to hear it just as much as you needed to hear it today. Alright, let's settle back in comfortably and keep going together. Color number 5, Soft Sage Green. This is genuinely the color that works so beautifully specifically during colder months, when skin often looks a touch paler overall, and everything about our usual routine can feel just slightly less vibrant and alive. A soft, distinctly muted sage green, and I want to emphasize muted here, never a bright emerald, never a cool, sharp mint, but something gentle sitting quietly between gray and green, creates a genuinely quiet, sophisticated overall look that instantly reads as intentional, current, and thoughtfully chosen rather than dated or overly safe. What makes sage work so remarkably well on mature hands specifically comes down to its inherently muted quality as a color. Because it exists as neither a true saturated green nor a true gray, sitting instead in that soft in-between space, it doesn't compete with skin tone at all in the way a bolder, more saturated color might. It simply sits quietly beside the skin neutrally, allowing the entire hand to read as calm, put together, and quietly elegant rather than deliberately drawing attention to any one particular feature or area. It's genuinely an unexpected choice for most women initially, and yet it consistently surprises people with just how flattering it actually turns out to be, once they finally work up the courage to try it for themselves. Color number 6. Classic red, but with a twist. Red nail polish carries something of a mixed reputation among mature women specifically, having the potential to look either absolutely stunning and confident, or occasionally slightly harsh depending entirely on the specific undertone chosen, and this difference almost always comes down to that underlying undertone rather than the actual boldness or intensity of the red itself. A true red, meaning one with a slight brown or brick undertone woven through it, rather than a stark, cool, distinctly blue-based red, softens beautifully against mature skin while still delivering absolutely all of the confidence, timeless elegance, and classic appeal that red as a color has always been known for throughout fashion history. The twist here, the detail that changes everything, lies entirely in that underlying undertone rather than in the shade's overall boldness. A cool, blue-leaning red can occasionally emphasize any existing blue or purple tint already present in mature skin, inadvertently creating a slightly harsher, colder overall look than intended. A warmer brick-leaning red instead does the complete opposite, grounding the entire hand in genuine warmth, making a properly chosen red one of the most classic, timeless, and genuinely flattering color choices available to any woman. Once she knows precisely which specific version to reach for at the counter or display wall. Color number 7. Sheer Milky White. Our 7th and final color today might genuinely be the most unexpected, surprising choice on this entire list, and yet it's quietly become something of a favorite among experienced manicurists working specifically with mature clientele. A sheer milky white, and this distinction matters enormously, not a stark, fully opaque white, but something genuinely soft, gentle, and slightly translucent in quality, has become a quiet favorite for very good reason among those who understand color theory for mature skin properly. It brightens the entire nail bed almost instantly upon application, creating a clean, fresh, effortlessly polished look that reads as naturally put together rather than as though you're trying too hard to make a statement. Because the formula itself is genuinely sheer rather than fully opaque, it allows just enough of the natural nail bed underneath to show through the color, successfully avoiding the stark, sometimes harsh contrast that a fully opaque, completely solid white can unfortunately create against mature skin specifically. This particular shade has become especially popular for special occasions precisely because it photographs so beautifully under almost any lighting condition you might encounter, brightening hands noticeably in photographs without ever looking overly done, artificial, or heavy-handed in its application. Let's recap everything we've covered together today slowly and clearly, because I genuinely want this to stick with you the next time you find yourself standing in front of a nail polish display, feeling unsure exactly where to start. Soft Rose Nude for an everyday universally flattering base that works beautifully on virtually any skin tone. Warm Coral to actively counteract any cooler undertones present in the skin. Soft Lavender Gray to brighten dullness and create gentle, flattering contrast. Muted Berry for a polished, sophisticated everyday statement that never feels harsh. Soft Sage Green specifically for cooler months when everything feels a touch less vibrant than usual. Classic Red with a warm brick undertone for timeless, grounded confidence. And Sheer Milky White for an effortlessly fresh, naturally photo-ready look. None of these 7 choices require an expensive salon visit or an entirely new nail care routine built from scratch. They simply require choosing your next bottle of polish with a bit more genuine intention behind the decision, understanding clearly which undertones work harmoniously with your specific skin, rather than quietly working against it. That's really the entire philosophy underlying everything we discuss on this channel: small, genuinely informed choices that make a real, immediately visible difference in how you look and feel every single day. If this video changed the way you think about your very next manicure, that is exactly why I make these videos every single week for women exactly like you. So before you go, please do me one more favor. Like this video so more women your age can discover it too, the same way you just did today. Drop a comment below telling me honestly which of these 7 colors you're planning to try next. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now truly is the perfect time to do so, because next week we're covering another small, frequently overlooked detail that quietly changes how youthful you look, without costing you a single extra penny beyond what you're already spending. Thank you so much genuinely for spending this entire half hour with me today. Your hands have done so much for you throughout an entire beautiful life, holding the people you love, doing the work that mattered to you, and they deserve a color that celebrates them properly rather than one chosen at random. I will see you warmly in the very next one.